In the previous videos, you've seen what are the professional, educational arrangements or accommodations you can do when someone is suffering from ADHD. So we're now going to see what are the accommodations, what can be done when someone in a couple or in a family is suffering from ADHD. To answer this question, we welcome today Dr.K. Auberjoois. Dear Katarina, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So you are a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and specialist in couple and family therapies. So you are going to tell us something about families and couples when someone is, or more individuals in a family are suffering from ADHD. Let's talk first about a couple. So are attentional, hyperactive, impulsive symptoms problematic in a couple?
Well, yes, potentially. They are all potentially creating a conflict, because if you never listen to your partner, or if you're always active, if you forget everything, if you never settle down, there is a risk that my partner gets exhausted on the long run. But the most annoying symptoms, in my point of view as a couples therapist, is the difficulty to regulate emotions. So the impulsiveness, the outburst, the tantrums, and irritability.
Okay. So if it's so complicated, so why do we get into a relationship with someone suffering from ADHD?
Because there are also big advantages. A person suffering from ADHD often bring more creativity, more sociability, more imagination. It enriches the horizon of the partner not suffering from ADHD. So one of my patients, for example, told me that after she had left her husband, she realized, her husband who suffered from ADHD, she realized how much her social life had become more dull, more empty. She didn't meet any more new people, and she became conscious that her husband, ADHD, when speaking to everyone all the time, created a lot of new opportunities to meet people.
And I guess also sexuality is maybe
important
quite interesting.
to say, very important to say, because sexuality can also be more attractive, more various, and more spontaneous. People often say it's more fun.
All right. So advantages, disadvantages. So what can be done in a couple when someone is suffering from ADHD?
Yeah. Let's describe the ideal way of doing. So the couple should ideally work together and should collaborate. And this initially involves psychoeducation. It is essential that the non-ADHD partner knows well the symptoms and also the suffering from his partner. And it is therefore very important that the therapist of an ADHD patient invites the partner to explain the symptoms and to really help him to understand everyday life with the symptoms.
All right. So understanding the symptoms, collaborating, and so on.
But sometimes, when the patterns of interaction or communication become more rigid, sometimes it is necessary and beneficial to consult a couple therapist. And the latter will sort out what is the influence of the ADHD and what is not, because everything is
not ADHD.
Not all problems of a couple are due to ADHD. And indeed, quite often, once ADHD is diagnosed, people tend to de-responsibilize and to link all the couple problems to ADHD, which is wrong. But the therapist should help the couple and each member of the couple individually, but also together, to sort out and to become aware of the impact of the symptoms on the relationship. And it will also be a question for the non-ADHD partner to understand the mechanisms put in place from his side to face the symptoms. And so sometimes he puts strategies from his side which maintain or even amplify the symptoms. And so this mutual awareness, I'd say, is a very powerful lever for change. And it will then be necessary, eventually with the help of a professional, to find strategies not only to identify, but also to find new ways of interacting, especially in difficult moments. It is also very beneficial for a couple to recognize the efforts done by each other, by one and the other, also to accept criticism, which is not an easy thing to do, and to apologize for events of emotional overflow. So a lot of couples, what they find is a sort of a stop code word, and when they use it, they immediately stop an interaction and to avoid any emotional arousal, which could be destructive for the couple life. If ever there are children, it's also important to give them some space to talk about the difficulties they can encounter in the relationship with a parent ADHD.
Okay, so you talk about children, so let's talk about children.
Yeah.
So what can be done when we have a children suffering from ADHD in a family?
I'd say, again, as for couples, it's essential that there are some psychoeducational sessions, but with all members of the family, not only the parents and the child ADHD, but also the siblings. They all must know well the disorder in order to live with it and maybe forget about it once they know it. So it is quite common also for one, if there is an ADHD child in a family, it's quite common that you also find some ADHD in one parent, as you know. And so the more the family knows about the disorder, the easier it gets. One point essentially is the communication in the family. It has to be very clear, and they have to use precise words, only one information at the time, not confusing the child and staying in visual contact. And so, but we learn a lot about families who live with an ADHD child and who manage it well. So what are their secrets? And so I'd say that they have accepted the diagnosis, which is not an easy thing to do in the beginning, and the therapist must help them. So to accept the disorder, they use a lot of humor, and they encourage, even praise, I'd say, the child's positive results and highlight the positive results rather than his failures. They use a positive approach by remaining calm, which of course is not easy, especially if yourself as a parent suffer from ADHD.
So you want to say avoiding punishment, or?
Well, ideally, I'd say that it might be too optimistic, but ideally punishment are avoided and rewards are favored.
Small rewards, I guess.
Small rewards, yeah, you're right. ADHD will always prefer immediate but small rewards to big but distant ones, yeah.
And what can be done daily? I guess you need to have hours, specify what the child should do every day. So can you just tell us something about that?
You're right. The ideal when living in a family with ADHD is to think about structuring the environment, and routines are very important. The child must know when it's time to eat, when it's time to sleep, how much time he can spend on the screens, which is often a problem, and what are his daily chores to do, etc. So parents must really try to be united and have the same discourse in front of the child, especially concerning the consequences of behavior that they want to see disappear. And they agree among themselves as a parental government, if you want to say so. They announce the consequences so it is completely predictable for the child. So this is a very important point also. And
And can we do anything else to help the child?
yeah, it's very precious for the parents to help their child to organize his daily life with visual tools. So a post-it or agenda or a calendar and a box to place his keys or the telephones so that he won't lose them all the time. Also, if ever the parent ADHD work at home, it's very important that he identifies the hours of work and the hours of family life. If not, conflict is predictable. But in general, let's say, be creative as a parent and have a good time with your child. It's also very helpful, what we see in clinical work, it's very helpful to discuss with your child the places that are most suitable for him to work. It might not be his room. He might prefer working on the kitchen table, even with noises around, and that might be his way to work the best. So listen to your child and encourage him. Yeah.
And what about social life? You need to encourage
Yeah.
that or not?
I'd say it is very, I meet a lot of families exhausted of the demands of managing a child with ADHD, and it is exhausting. So to take care of your social network is essential, to have sources of outside help and support, a very essential point, yeah.
So thank you. Could you just tell us a bit about the multifamily groups? I think it's a new way of treating families.
So the idea is to treat several families or couples at the same time, around 6 to 8 families and their children together. And so these multifamily groups, they are used in a lot of symptoms. They have proven to be very effective and helpful. But in the case of ADHD, what unites the family is this symptom. They are all, as you could say, in the same boat. And so they understand easily the difficulties encountered by the other families, and they can really work together and learn by mimetism of the other families. So they also create a network of support, which is very important, as I said before. And the objective is to increase the self-healing forces of families. So the therapists are there to offer exercises that promote new way of being together. For example, one exercise is a souvenir flea market, is that every family chooses at home 5 to 6 objects important to the family history. They then come with these objects and present them to the other families. That might be a toy from childhood, a picture, or a present from a grandfather, etc. And they give a positive narration about these objects to the other families, and they experience a sort of family pride about these objects and their story and their positive narrations. And the other families listen and encourage the expression of feelings about these objects. So there are a lot of exercises which are very creative and helpful and give a very good atmosphere in these groups. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Very useful. So thank you again for your contribution to this course on ADHD. And goodbye, Katarina.
Goodbye. Thank you.
So you've seen in this video that ADHD impacts the life of individuals, not only in the negative way, but also in the positive way. I hope you understood that there are a lot of accommodations or a lot that can be done to help people live in couple or families with their ADHD.